Hola. Yo, Gene, what's going on?
Not much.
Why don't you introduce yourself and we'll take it from there.
Okay, so welcome to all the new agents, or glad to see all the other agents back again. My name is Leanne Retherford, and I am your underwriter. I'm not sure exactly how long I've been working for Charles, but it's been a few years, so I think we have a pretty good relationship going now. I've been with Ameritas around 18 plus years and in the industry a little over 20. So pretty familiar with insurance, started from the very beginning and just a new business role and worked my way up into an underwriting role. So currently in a senior position, and handle, some decent sized cases, can approve up to 10 million. Um, so if you have cases that are larger than that, they might have to go above me, but for the most part, you should be working with me as your underwriter. Um, I'm work fully remote, but out of the Cincinnati suburb area. So occasionally, I'll make it into the office from time to time, but if you hear a dog in the background, I apologize. So comes with the territory. And we kind of started the fully remote around the time of COVID, and underwriting is one of those positions that will probably stay remote. We collaborate a lot online, and most of us can just get the job done independently of one another and just share as we need it. As far as underwriting goes, like I said, this is kind of informal. So if you guys have questions, just let me know. I'll just go through um, what we typically do in a day as an underwriter, and what we see and what you guys can provide to us that will help, and some of our underwriting programs that we use, and then just yell out any questions as we go. So he's got the individual policy underwriting guide up right now. It looks like basically that's our underwriting Bible, as I call it. That's what we go to for pretty much everything. We do have industry-wide manuals that we use. Swiss guideline is the one we use the most. I think most companies follow that one. Some have their own, but that's the one we usually follow for all of our guidelines. And then if we need to go outside of that, we have a little breathing room within those permanent products, but we pretty much stick with the Swiss guidelines for any term products. So if you hear us say that we might have a little leeway on permanent products, that's generally why, because we're pretty much bound to using their guidelines. Um, so I guess we can just get right into it. Um, the first few pages talk about our age and amount guidelines. You can take a look at that. On the top, you have your ages. Along the side, you have your face amounts, and then you can just follow a line on that guideline to see, what might be required at that time. And this is all for traditional underwriting. We'll get into our accelerated underwriting here in a few. But if you, like, say, have a 45-year-old for 500,000, you come across, you can see that blood, urinalysis, and a paramed exam would be required. These are going to be pretty standard for every case that's traditional underwriting. Not going to be able to just waive these requirements. Um, Sometimes it's going to be necessary to get medical records on a case. So even though it's not an age and amount requirement, we might see something that wants us to get an APS. So it is our discretion to add some requirements, but these are going to be the standard requirements that are necessary to consider your applicants. I'll just quickly breeze through some of these. Option C and flexible paid up rider on the whole life. Option C and flexible paid up riders would double the face amount as far as the age and amount requirements go. If you have a case that has that on there, just keep that in mind. So if you apply for 1 million, for underwriting purposes, we're going to treat that as if it's 2 million, because there is some additional risk to us. So when you're looking at your chart, if you have the option C or the flexible paid up rider, take that into consideration. The other
Question,
riders.
Leanne.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
When you mention that, as you know, I'm the IUL guy, right? So with the doubling of the like the amounts,
Mhm.
does the GPT or CVAT make a difference or no?
When you say GPT,
Guideline premium test, cash value accumulation test.
I was gonna say we're not really looking at that just on the flexible paid up rider where we might look at the cash value. But for as far as the IULs, no. So that's not gonna change anything.
Thank you.
Mhm. Um, where else should I say? There's all cases are now non-med that are under 1 million and under age 70. So it used to be where we would get urine and a paramed. We no longer do that. That's a good one to keep in mind for everybody because some people still want to order those. I forget exactly when this changed, probably in the last year maybe, but keep that in mind. You don't have to get the paramed or the urine specimen anymore for those people. You can just fill out the health questionnaire page. It- People still forget from time to time. It's fine. I'll just ask you to go ahead and provide a completed page. So it's not an issue, but just if you want to avoid, placing requirements that you don't have to, that's something to keep in mind.
Leanne, I have a
Mhm.
question.
Yes.
If I have a client that's 63 and I have HIV, but it's supposed to be non-detectable, and I'm looking at the guidelines here where you
Mhm.
wouldn't do a medical or in a case like that, because when you answer yes to those questions, would at that point you get, or you would on your side request the medicals from the doctor, or would you not, based on the medication that they're taking?
We would most likely just go for the APS. So get the information from their doctor. It is extremely rare for us to order blood or urine on a
Okay,
case like that. It's not impossible, but I've only done it a handful of times in my career. We try and avoid that if any way possible. Most of that kind of information is going to be best from their doctor anyway. So we're going to try and get the medical records, especially if it's a non-med case. Um,
okay. Is
and
it
we are,
is it a certain time frame that where it has to be non-detected in so many years, or
I'm
what's
not I'm not the HIV expert. I'm just going to say
got
that.
you?
We do
Okay,
have, I can give you her name. We have a team. I don't know what her title is. It'd be like a specialist in the HIV underwriting.
got you.
So I can give you her name. Her name is Carol Schuler,
Okay,
Schueler.
okay,
And if you have a specific question, I'm going to refer all cases to her anyway, and she still reviews all HIV past our medical director. Um,
great.
so just keep that in mind that I'm gonna defer to her on all those cases
Okay,
because she's had a little additional training, and it is HIV is a newer thing that we're considering that we didn't used to take. We're all trained in it, but mostly basic. So she gets into the in-depth stuff. So I'll defer to her on those cases. So if you have an
great.
HIV, put that in the if you don't put it on the health questionnaire, it should be there. But if you don't and you want to put it like in the producer's statement, just so we're aware, like if a paramed's being ordered and you didn't complete the health questionnaire, that I'll know that she needs to do the underwriting. Okay.
All right, thank you, Leanne.
You're welcome. Okay, going along. I don't think I need to hit every writer, but I'll just say that talks about a retention here. I mean, you can look at that. It's not something you'll have to see very often. Our jumbo limits, again, I don't think that you guys are sending in huge cases. It's probably not going to happen too frequently. So we can get into the life underwriting classifications a little bit. Um, this is our preferred guideline. So anything standard or better. If your case is going to be standard or rated, we can get into that a little bit further. But if you're looking to get a select, preferred, or preferred plus rating, you can just review this little quick cheat sheet guideline if you want to see if they will qualify. Um, for instance, some people will ask me, they've had a DUI in the last few years, do they qualify? And you can look here, and it says that if they've had one in the last 10 years, we won't allow preferred plus, but we would allow, let's say, preferred if it's 7 years out. So Okay. Yeah, there's the family history that we've loosened up on that a little bit, so that's a little bit more helpful. It used to be a little bit more stringent.
Hey, Marcel speaking. Hey, how you doing? I'm sorry, one more time?
Marcel, I'll mute you. I'm sorry about that, Leanne.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I
Please,
thought
please,
I'd leave
please
it
stay
simple.
muted. Please stay muted unless you have a question. Thank you.
Okay, so I mean, I don't know. You guys can just stop me anytime you have questions about these, but these are just pretty much a guideline you can look at. I'm not going to go through every single scenario, but if you have questions about cholesterol or blood pressures, which ones would fit into the preferred guidelines, you can certainly keep it here. I think you have it on the marijuana now. That's a good one. I was gonna say, I don't know what it actually says. It does say frequency. So that is the key with marijuana. That's a lot we get asked. We do accept it. We're pretty liberal. It's gotten better over the years, doing this 20 years, not taking those cases all the way to taking them now best class sometimes. It's changed a lot in the industry. So you can refer there. Frequency is the key. If you get somebody that's a daily user, keep in mind, we're not gonna give them best class. Daily users are typically table B. If it's edible, we might be able to consider it non-tobacco. If it's inhaled vape, that's going to be tobacco. So table B tobacco for your chronic, even not daily, but very heavy. So more than the 12 times per month, it's probably going to be a table B in that case. Because there are still some repercussions and some risks associated with chronic use. So that's why we do that. If you have a case where somebody is using tobacco, we don't have a select tobacco rate class, so keep that in mind too. You're either going to get preferred if they qualify for all the preferred criteria, or you're going to get standard tobacco if they don't qualify for the
Man, we have
preferred.
some questions in the chat.
Oh, okay.
And
I'm
it looks
sorry.
like that's all right. I'm reading along. It looks like LaShawn asked, what about type 2 diabetes?
Okay. Um,
Uh,
that's probably not going to be covered in our standard guidelines. That's or on our preferred guidelines because diabetes is always going to be standard at best. So that's one we'll get to at the end. The end of the manual shows the possible conditions that would be possibly rated, not necessarily. But if you have a specific case you want to ask me about diabetes, feel free. But in general, type 2 is considered the better of the two to have. Now your younger age, your type 1, your insulin dependent is going to be more heavily rated, and it's going to depend on multitude of factors. Usually we can't consider type 1 until they're at least 30 because there's so many complications that can go along with the younger ages and having insulin dependent diabetes.
and then I
So,
actually have a question of my
mhm,
own.
mhm,
So I see here the hazardous sports participation.
okay.
I know some of us go to like the Barclays Center for the NBA draft. I haven't landed a baller yet, but one day I will. Uh, and so that and like football, what are we considering hazardous
Okay.
sports?
Okay, it's not really that kind of thing. Those aren't considered hazardous, but they do also have their own categories. So hazardous would be like your scuba diving, your skydiving, your mountain climbing, your certain racing, sports racing of any type. It could be car, motorcycle, mountain bike, the mountain climbing. I don't think I included that. Those are all your hazardous sports. Scuba diving, if it's over 100 feet, considered hazardous. If you're doing any kind of night diving or cave diving, that's considered hazardous. So it doesn't really have an explanation there, but it's kind of all those kind of sports. Now, just to go back to the NFL or the NBA, or if you get a pro, and not amateur, or not even probably college players, most of them are going to be okay. But if you get a professional that gets paid to do this, we are going to be limited on how much we can offer. We do up to, I think it's up to our full retention now, which changed a few years ago to 5 million, but it used to be 2. So don't quote me. I'd have to verify on that. But then we can accept, but we'd have to shop out the remaining. To just keep that in mind, that we're limited on how much we can do on those professionals, especially if and when we get whole teams coming in, because unfortunately life insurance it's been detrimental when a team gets in a airplane crash. So those kind of things, we really got to limit how much we could, because a whole team would be devastating to an insurance company. That's just something to keep in mind. We try and spread out the risk to reinsurers, if you're familiar with them. So it's where we would take the entire application, ship it out, have them underwrite it, and they accept the risk or deny the risk. It's on the back end. So sometimes you're not even going to know if they did that. It's all going to be on Ameritas paper still, but it might, us splitting the risk might have some implication with future underwriting too.
Thank you.
Keep in mind, this section here is this is what Ameritas Underwriting used to determine what rate class you can get.
Standard or better too. Keep that in mind.
Standard or better, because sometimes we quote preferred, but it comes back select non-tobacco, and this is the criteria that they use to see what category the rate is going to fall in. This is not accept or deny yet. All right.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. At this point, this is just trying to get them into our better than average mortality class, and most people fit into that. Not everyone, but most of our applicants fit into the standard or better. I don't know the exact percentage, but I know it used to be most. Our build guidelines are there too. So if you strictly, are looking for a quote on somebody, you're not sure where their build falls, I suggest you try there first. Not that I ever mind talking to you guys, but we are very busy here. So if it's just strictly a build question that you can look up, I would prefer that you try and use this. Now, clearly, it only goes up so far. It only goes to standard, and anything above that, just keep in mind, is going to be B or higher, even a pound. It's a pretty generous build chart. So if you get one and you don't know what you want to quote, just call me on those cases or shoot me an email. I'm probably quicker at getting back to the email, to be honest, but
So Leanne, if I'm reading this right, somebody that's 6'4",
Mhm.
and the standard rate is 308. I'm reading that correct. And if this person is 315,
yeah,
we're doing standard. I mean, we're going table B at that point.
at least table B.
Okay.
Every pound counts, and I'd have to look at our Swiss guidelines to see exactly where they would fall.
Okay.
Sometimes we can get them credit back down to a standard, but just keep in mind that things have to happen for us to be able to give credit. There has to be a lot of good things behind the scenes. Sometimes we can use our special programs, which we'll get into here in a little bit. Just for the sake of time, I don't have time to go through every scenario, so I'm just trying to quickly go through this. But stop me if you still have a question. We covered marijuana a little bit, but this section is really good for you to get in-depth information about it and how we underwrite it, how we look at it. I didn't mention this, but working in the marijuana related business and coming in for business insurance is going to be a decline. We can only take personal coverage. It's still federally illegal, and somebody who works in that field that's looking for business coverage is not going to be, they're just not going to be insurable at this time, because there's other implications, money and that kind of thing that we worry about.
So if they were working in the marijuana business, let's say they owned, we couldn't do like a dual executive reward or a 162?
No, it's strictly personal coverage, and no benefit, no business benefit, nothing like that. So
Okay.
yeah, I would say no to that. Financial underwriting, for the most part, the personal coverage, I think mostly you guys do a lot of personal, and I don't see a ton of business, but anyway, the income factor is slightly down if you go down just a little bit further, Charles, based on a multiple of their earned income. you can see what they would qualify for. That's strictly what we go by. So if you have one that's outside of that and you feel like they qualify for more, you can explain that to us. We may ask you, like, how did you come up with this amount? And if you show us how you did, it's possible that we may allow an exception to this, but this is our guidelines. So just keep that in mind. The younger ages, the younger they are, the more insurance they're going to qualify for. When they get to the 70 plus, it's going to be a lot more strict on how much, and we might ask for a bit, other financial documents, tax returns, and that kind of thing, especially higher face amounts. So once you get above 5 million, it's an age and amount requirement. Keep that in mind. If you have higher cases, we're going to need to see tax returns, third parties, and if it's business, we might need the balance sheet, the income statement, tax returns, buy-sell agreements. There's a lot that we could be going for, but if you're strictly looking at those personal cases, the most important thing is the multiple earned income here. And we do have the ability to order a tax return. I don't do it very often anymore. Most people can provide them to me. It's not a problem, but we do have the ability to have them just sign a 4506C, and that way we can obtain their tax return. What else here? You can feel free to read some of this, ability to pay, affordability, that kind of thing.
I have a question actually when it comes to the financial.
Mhm.
So because I heard you mention, I guess we had increased from 2 million to 5 million. So when if we have a little over 2 million, we're not, I guess, going for reinsurance. But then I have a client who is interested in premium financing.
Okay.
But I don't think is the net worth requirement like 10 million?
We also have a premium financing specialist. So
Okay.
I'll give you his name because you definitely will want to run those cases by him before proceeding. His name is Bill Shamleffer, Shamleffer. F as in Frank. Bill Shamleffer. He's an underwriting officer, I believe, just below Scott Corbett, who is our underwriting chief underwriter. So Bill handles the premium financing cases if you do see them. Again, that'll be one that'll go to him. There's not a lot that I don't underwrite, but there are some specialty things that go to other underwriters.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so feel free to reach out to him if you have questions. If you want to shoot me an email, I can give you his email or his contact information. It's fine. You should be able to find it in the directory too.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, but Charles is just scrolling down. It gets into a little bit of the
Professional athletes and entertainers.
yeah, the entertainment athletes, that's what we were talking about earlier. It does say maximum of 2 million. I was like, I can't remember if we went up to 5 million. So we did stay at 2 million. So anything above that is going to go out. Like I said, we go ahead and send the file out. It's nothing you have to do, but if you're going to send in one of those athletes or entertainers, just keep that in mind. We have to limit the risk a little bit. So bankruptcy. So we do accept bankruptcies. We don't like to see multiple bankruptcies. So if they've had a second bankruptcy, we might not be able to consider. I'm not going to say never, but it would have to be many, many, many years in between bankruptcies. We prefer the chapter 11, 12, or 13. And as long as they are making those payments, we usually can accept those cases. Again, we don't like the multiple bankruptcies, but if we understand that things happen. So,
Can you explain the rationale, the correlation between bankruptcy and life
well,
insurance?
it has to do with the word I'm looking for. So keeping the policy in force. It has to do with affordability, making sure they will be able to pay their premiums. So because we have to make money, unfortunately, we're a business and we have to make money, we kind of want to weed out those risks that are going to default. Does that make sense? So we look at it a little bit more harshly when somebody has gone through it. I mean, we understand things happen, but it's the multiple ones that we worry about, because we could never make anything if these people are lapsing their policies or unable to afford it. So that's just something to keep in mind. That's the ultimate thing. All right, juvenile coverage. You guys are out of New York, so I'm assuming you guys all probably understand the guidelines in New York. That's what we try and follow. So very strictly, the underage 4.5, maximum 50,000 or 25% of the parents enforce coverage. And then the little bit older ages, we can go a little bit higher. But we pretty much stick to the New York guidelines since they are the strictest. So we'll consider half of what the parent has in force if the parent does have coverage. Like I said, if they don't have coverage, then we're really going to limit it. We only allow 2 million on children. We don't like to insure children for more than that. We do require an APS if it gets above 1 million. You're coming in at a good time if you're newer, because that used to be 250,000. So we were getting a lot more APSs. Most of the kids, most of the children are healthy. Keep in mind, though, again, we don't like the type 1 diabetes. We're going to decline those. Mental health and younger people, younger persons are going to be a problem too. We see quite a bit of those. The build, I don't know how many I see. I think I decline at least once a month for a build just because the parent guessed the build. It doesn't help us because the build charts are pretty strict. So if you have a child, if you can do anything you can to get the most accurate build, if you have to weigh and measure and all that, I don't know, have the parent do it right there in front of you. I mean, but that's the biggest reason we're declining children sometimes, is because their build is just so out of whack. And I think it's because a lot of people just guess, or they gave us the most recent build and it's changed significantly. So I don't want to have to decline those cases, and our decisioning system may eventually just automatically kick it out. And I don't want that to happen to you either. I have to go back and ask a lot just to verify the build. I tell you,
Well,
a lot of people just guess.
well, that's the good part about having this handy booklet. So if they tell you something and it sounds a little off, then you can go straight to the chart and say,
Yep.
well, can you confirm that? Right?
Yep. It doesn't, we don't have a build chart for juveniles on here that's published.
Oh, it's not juvenile.
Unfortunately,
Okay.
no, it's not juvenile, and it is different. So that one's a little trickier. I hate that, but it'd be so hard to do it because there's so many factors. It's based on sex and then height and then age. It's so hard. You could never really publish it out there. It'd be too big. So if you have a juvenile and you're just not sure, just seems like this child might be a little heavier or might be a little shorter, just call me. Call me and we can discuss it. But like I
Leanne, I
said,
heard you mention
yeah.
mental health.
Uh-huh.
So autism is a knockout?
No, it's not a knockout. See, autism and mental health, they go hand in hand a lot. I'm gonna pull up the juvenile guidelines real quick while we're talking. Because there are special guidelines for juvenile. So in either case, we like to see the higher functioning autism. So if they're not able to be dependent at all, probably not going to be able to take them. But I pulled up our guidelines just so I can give it to you. So if you have a juvenile that has autism, any age less than 2 is just an outright postpone. So if they're considering a diagnosis, we're probably not going to be able to consider until they at least are age 2 or have been ruled out to have autism. And then what we like to see is the higher functioning. So we want to see the children that have an IQ greater than 70, that don't have behavioral problems, that don't have other mental health problems. And when I say other mental health, I mean like the anxiety, the depression, the post-traumatic stress disorders, that kind of thing. So we want the better of the better cases. I'm not saying that we won't be able to take any. If they have more of a moderate, we could probably take them, but it's going to be rated. The others might be standard. The severe or profound is going to be an outright decline. Sometimes you can tell that outright of nonverbal, or they can't function on their own. So those are probably not cases we can consider at this time.
Leanne, what about adults say this age 23, he's functional, he even have a job and all, but
Okay.
just didn't know how that would fit into um his ability to get insurance.
Right. It's kind of good. It's kind of gonna be the same way as the juvenile. We're gonna like those more mild cases that are able to work, that are able to function. I just had a question come up though yesterday about power of attorney, and it's a good time to reiterate that if they require a power of attorney, we're not going to be able to accept those cases. But if they are able to do most things on their own, just have a little bit of social problems or maybe some communication things, but they are able to live independently and function in society, those people are going to be the ones we want to take.
But you said if they have the power of attorney, you said that's not going to be
No, if there is a power of attorney on that particular person, we will not be able to consider.
okay, thanks.
It runs a big gamut. That's why they think they call it a spectrum, because it can go from very mild to very severe, profound. So we like the mild. We can sometimes consider the moderate. Just keep that in mind. If you're unsure, give me a call. We'll talk it through. And we'll try and decide if we can or can't. Sometimes I can't tell, and we'll just have to underwrite it and get the records. All right, where were we? Foreign risk and residency. Good guidelines here. I can briefly hit them. I'm going to say read these anytime you have some case, because I have to read them anytime a case comes up. I go through them. I have to make sure that I have the, if I have a visa, what type it is, what country they're from, I have to look up this every time. It's just not, and it changes. This is one of those things that's ever evolving. Sometimes we can take risk that's traveling to a country and all of a sudden we can't. I mean, just like look at the Israel thing. For a long time, we were taking Israel. It was fine as an A country. Now, any travel to Israel right now at this point in time is still, even though with the peace thing, I don't know what's going to happen with that, but it's still a postpone for now. So that's
Yeah.
ever evolving. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Are
No.
I-10s accepted?
Let me get back to you on that, because again, it's ever evolving. The last I heard, we were going to do some. That's something I'll have to get back to you on.
Thank you.
I-10. I'm going to make myself a note to follow up on the I-10, and I'll send it to Charles. Okay. So yeah, there are definitely some citizens we can take, even with the employment off card. Depends on their country of origin though. So, and that's not published. You'll just probably have to ask me if they have an employment off card only. Just let me know what their country of origin is, how long they've been here. We take a lot of things into consideration. All the money's got to be in the US. That's why I said this section is one that if you have a question, really read this and then come to me, because I'm probably going to have to read it. I may have to refer it on because it's always changing and it's really difficult to keep up with all of it. But if they have a green card, though, we're going to treat them like a US citizen. There's going to be no difference. That's the kind we want. If there's an H-1B visa, those are usually the more professionals. Other professions have been accepted into it. So it gets a little trickier, but for the most part, we're taking most of those people. Again, we're still looking at country of origin. You have any questions about that? Because like I said, it's a tricky section. I could get into it, but it seems like every case is different, very case by case.
What about expats? So somebody who is, for example, like gaining a dual citizenship, let's say outside of the States, because I know we have the question, are you planning on traveling in the next 2 years? Um, I actually had a situation where I didn't know the client was intending on going to Mexico, and we scheduled his paramed, and he was like, "I'm in Mexico," and I was like, "You didn't tell me that."
Right. I
Um,
don't, is it on here? I don't know if it is. I can't remember if expatriate. So all paperwork, unfortunately, like you were saying, you didn't know where they were leaving. All paperwork has to be done on US soil. So if they are outside of the country, it's going to be a no-go. If they can come home and get everything done on US soil, it might be considered, but I think we're still considering expatriate standard at best. They're not going to qualify for our preferred. And then again, it's going to probably depend on the country they're going to, whether the state that you're in has certain travel laws, residency. It's going to be a case by case again. So if you got one, call me. But I can just tell you for the most part, we're going to be standard at best.
What about,
How long they're out of the US, that kind of thing. But again, it's key to have everything done on US soil. So if it requires exams and the application is supposed to be signed here, all of that.
what about the dual citizenships? If you have a client that lives in the US 6 months and Panama 6 months?
I know those are going to probably require me to refer to a more senior underwriter for certain. If they have a dual, they're still going to be a US citizen, but yes, if they're living 6 months outside of the country, it could still be a problem. So it's going to be case by case on that. We don't see them often, but if you get one, call me. Pick up the phone, call me. Are we ready for the accelerated? You scrolled just past it just a little bit. The applicants who do not speak English. I wanted to just hit on this real quick because that also happens from time to time. As long as the proposed insured is able to read and understand English, it shouldn't be a problem. But if it's not their first language and they're having any kind of trouble with it, we might have to put an amendment on there. We might need to make sure that the agent is fluent in their language so that they can understand, they can explain everything to them, because that is super important to us. So if you have somebody that doesn't and you don't speak English, let me know and we'll see where we need to, what we need to do about that. But we might have to have somebody else help us interpret things. All right, we're into the accelerated underwriting. And I think Charles really wanted to get into this section. Where do I even start? So we started this program around 2020, so right after COVID, because we knew to compete, we had to do this. And it was just a really good time to get involved in the accelerated process. So accelerated basically means that you're not getting labs and exam, not getting an APS, but not every case is gonna qualify. That's the unfortunate part. So you could read through this. I'll just go briefly through some of the main points. So it's 18 to 60, but depending on the age, they might qualify for a lesser amount. So 18 to 50 is up to 2.5 million and 51 to 60 is 1 million. It includes all of our products, so it doesn't, not just limited to permanent products. What else? They do need to be US citizens or permanent residents. So if they have the H-1B visa, employment off card, they will not qualify. You might as well just try traditional. And I think it's as easy. I don't ever fill out the applications, but Charles, is it just as easy as clicking a button that you want to do accelerated?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I thought so. When it says no hazardous occupation, there's not a whole lot of occupations that won't be. Trying to think off the top of my head, like a pilot might not qualify. But for the most part, most people would fall under a normal application. But you know, it happens from time to time. So we don't accept any private aviation. If they are a commercial pilot and that's what they do for a living, though, that's different. So if it's a commercial
What about
pilot,
first responders?
first responders,
Like,
that's what I was kind of getting at. Like most of those are still going to qualify. It's your military people, it's your special forces, it's your law enforcement that might be involved in like bomb squad, that kind of thing, that might not qualify. But your everyday police officer, your everyday firefighter, they're going to be fine to go ahead and apply for the accelerated.
okay.
Yeah. Like I said, it doesn't happen often that it's declined for occupation. If you have a questionable occupation though, where you know there might be some hazard, give me a call. I can help you determine. Like I said, you can read through all these. No DUI within the past 5 years, no alcohol or drug dependency, no prior rated or declined coverage. That includes us and other companies. So if for some reason we declined it in the past, even if they're preferred plus now and they're great and everything's fine, we're still going to want to fully underwrite those cases. We were talking about the premium financing earlier, so we can't do premium financing with accelerated. And then briefly, it gives you a list of things that are not accepted. And I can tell you that even some of these, even though it says they're not accepted, might be accepted on an exception basis, but I wouldn't suggest trying it. I would just say, if you see these guidelines, just know that's probably going to be kicked out. So build outside standards, sleep apnea, diabetes, even
So
your high blood pressures, if they have 2 or more medications, or if it was diagnosed, let's say it says recently. I don't know who set this. Like I didn't come up with the parameters in the system, so I don't know if recently is 6 months or if it's a year, but just keep that in mind.
So this
What was your
doesn't
question?
mean it's a decline. It just means they're not eligible
Right.
for accelerated underwriting. They have to go
Exactly. I think
traditional.
some people think that this is just an automatic decline. It's not. It's just kicking it out of the accelerated. So it will default to getting the traditional underwriting requirement, and most of the time probably an APS, because most of these conditions are rateable, or can be rateable. So we'll want to weed out the ones that are rateable. And we can
Lee,
only, yeah, go ahead.
quick question. I see about like the weight loss surgery. So, but in
Mhm.
not in weight loss surgery, there's a lot of weight loss meds. Probably not fall under accelerated because I know like the Ozempic, Wegovy, and all of those types of things. Um, w- would they be eligible or possibly not because of a greater than, I guess you could say, 10 or 15 pounds? Sometimes at the application ask about weight loss within.
You're exactly on the right track. Now, like I said, this is all still systematic. Somebody has to program this. I'm not the programmer. To my knowledge, they haven't put in there that this will be kicked out if they're taking a Wegovy. But like you said, usually there's a weight loss in there, and if it's so much weight loss, it's gonna kick it out. And I didn't program it to know how much weight loss. I don't know if it's like 10%. It's gonna be tricky.
Okay.
So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying every case won't be able to make it, but some of them are definitely going to be knocked out. And like I said, it's all programmed, it's pre-programmed in there. So I'm not sure. Some cases I'm never going to know without asking the programmer what kicked it out. But
Okay.
I'm not saying it's impossible. That's why I said some of these things might not be impossible, but just keep in mind if it's on there, it might not go through. Don't be
Okay, I'm just
surprised.
curious. I saw surgery and I
Uh-huh.
said there's a lot with, weight loss within, these last couple of years.
That is a good point, though, and I don't think that that's anywhere in this underwriting guide. That probably should be added at some point, because these Swiss guidelines say that these people that are on these medications are not good candidates for preferred. So we're probably going to stick to standard or select on most of these cases, even if even if they're not diabetic and it's strictly just a maintain. I don't It's not a fan of the medications itself yet. I don't know if there's just not enough study, or if there's because of the other complications that can come with them, they're not preferred risk. That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
hmm So what else? I know we see a lot of these. Charles, just stop me with any questions, because I think this is a pain point.
I have a question because we have new agents that
hmm
just this stuff out. Like we sit
hmm
with a client and we go through it. Are you on that medication? No.
Right.
How's your driving record? Is good. And then we submit an application and just puzzle. Like
Uh-huh.
all of these things come up. Like how do you just go through, if you don't
Right.
mind, like how do
Okay,
you,
yeah.
like what do you run
That's a
that you
great
find these
point
things
that
out?
I do need to mention. So we run internal tools, things that you're never going to see, unfortunately, that you have to keep in mind. The first one is MIB. I'm sure everybody's familiar. We do run MIB, which is a tool that insurance companies use just to protect ourselves from fraudsters and that kind of thing. It's used on every case. If there's a reason to MIB, we're MIBing it, whether it's declined, approved. Now usually it's just standard or rated cases that MIB. We don't usually put anything under preferred plus cases unless it's just an exceptional history. But MIB is sometimes we find out things that you guys didn't know. So that's one thing that might kick it out. MVR, or what we call now driver risk. It can be driver risk includes it goes beyond just driving. It goes to also some criminal stuff. So it could be kicked out for that. In general, that's not happening very often. But the biggest kick out, the biggest thing that makes us knock these cases out is what's called Milliman and Telescript. It's just a tool that uses many factors from pharmacies, pharmacy databases, doctors' offices, medical claims. It kind of pieces all that together, and it gives us information about a client that you may not know and the client may not know that we're getting. I mean, I think most people that are knocked out are unsuspecting that we get all this information. But it'll give us all their prescriptions. And somebody was just asking me yesterday, well, what does that mean? Do you just see what prescription they're prescribed? I'm like, no, it shows us what was prescribed, the generic name, the brand name, the doctor who prescribed it, when it was prescribed, how many pills were filled, how many months it was, every refill. It gives us so much information. I'd love to show you one. I'd have to take out all the identifiers, but just so you can see how much information we get. So if somebody says they're only taking this medication, or they were taking an anxiety med, but they stopped using it, we can still tell if it was being refilled. And why would somebody refill their anxiety medication and then tell us they're not taking it? Things like that. So that's one piece of it, the pharmacy. And then we have what's called a diagnosis summary, and it's pretty accurate. There's not been a whole lot that haven't been accurate. Now, I'm not saying it's a perfect system, because sometimes I think it comes from diagnosis codes the doctor may have used for insurance purposes. And we probably have all experienced where one test we had wasn't covered by insurance for one reason or another because it wasn't coded properly. So I think we get a list from that of all these particular diagnoses codes. Sometimes it'll just say chest pain, sometimes it'll say coronary disease, but they really don't have coronary disease, but they put at that end to get it paid for. So it makes our job difficult. We have to try and figure that out. So sometimes they might be kicked out for something that's not entirely accurate, but we can't ignore. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Question, Leanne.
Mhm.
With that knowledge now, I'm sure we've all faced this, new or seasoned agents, where a client says, I've been prescribed, this med, but I don't take it.
Mhm.
Now, if they have been prescribed it, but does it make a difference if, say, they were prescribed it, but they never picked it up, versus if they were prescribed it and they picked it up and they're like, and they just tell, well, obviously, if they picked it up, then
I
it's
would
when they take it.
say most of the time, I'm trying to think of a